What's up, YouTube? This is Big Mike, aka Too Raw for TV. Sorry for the delay, but hey, it's Christmas and what have you. This video I want to talk about the game that was held Christmas Day between the Houston Rockets and the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Houston Rockets were hosting the Thunder, and of course, coming into this game, there were different things going on with both teams. This year, Russell Westbrook has notably taken a back seat offensively to Paul George, and this has been a winning formula. Um, Russell Westbrook this year is averaging 21 points per game, 20 to 21 points per game, and whether or not you're saying he's stat chasing, what have you, he is flirting with a third consecutive season, averaging a triple-double for the season. Of course, he's done it in two consecutive seasons, and he's the only man officially to average a triple-double for the season on more than one occasion. Oscar Robertson is the only other player to officially average a triple-double for the season. Of course, he did during the 1961-62 campaign. The Houston Rockets, of course, are being led by James Harden. He's averaging better than 32 points per game, and he's had a significant streak, James Harden, where he's averaged, he's had multiple 30-point games. I believe he's done it on 7 consecutive occasions. And, of course, he is seen as the league's premier scorer, what have you. I definitely disagree with Chris Paul's assertion that he's the best offensive player that we've seen. I've seen Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and Tracy McGrady, Allen Iverson. No, he's not the best offensive player that I've ever seen. Not by a long shot, to be honest with you. But, hey, James Harden is James Harden, not taking anything away from him. And he has a lot to shoulder now as far as the offensive burden now that the team has become much more depleted from last year, and now Chris Paul goes down. And to me, for the Rockets to have won this game, James Harden, when the Rockets are playing against the better teams, has to score at least 35 points. That's my opinion. He has to score at least 35 points unless he gets some unexpected help from others on the team. And when I say others, I mean, of course, like Capella, maybe the newly acquired Austin Rivers, but he's new to the system, so whatever, or Eric Gordon, or someone like that, and of course, those guys did step up today, but offensively, James Harden has to score a lot of points now for the Rockets to win, and especially against the better teams. And the Thunder, of course, are one of the league's better defensive teams, and I guess you could say going into this game that the Thunder were favored, and the Thunder looked like they were going to get a road victory. If you looked at the first half of the game, and the Thunder went into halftime with a 38-30 lead. But what happened was the Rockets played smart basketball. They dominated the possession and reboundings, so they limited the Thunder's second chance opportunities. I think Clinton Capella had 23 rebounds, if I'm not mistaken. That's the second consecutive game that he had at least 20 rebounds in the game. And James Harden was big for the Houston Rockets. He hit some big shots down the stretch, and he finished with 41 points. His 41 points is a Houston Rockets Christmas Day record. Of course, they're always making up records now, but whatever. That's the most points any Houston Rockets player has scored on the Christmas Day game. And they needed every one of those points because the final outcome was 113-109. The Thunder made a furious run at the end to try to come back into the game and regain the lead, or at least tie the game. But James Harden and Eric Gordon all hit some big shots toward the end, and the Houston Rockets are now sitting at a record where they're 3 games above 500. I believe they're 17-14 or something like that. And I might be all for the record. I think they're 17-14. And this was a big victory for them. Just for bragging rights, just for a mental thing, there's always going to be this rivalry between James Harden and Russell Westbrook. And I know they don't dislike each other. They were former teammates, of course, and they were teammates in Oklahoma City. But there's always this perceived rivalry, and what have you. And this was a good victory for them. Can they build upon this? Of course, we know the Rockets have been a pretty terrible team for much of this season. And I'm going to tell you something else, too. Now I'm thinking about it. Excuse me, my sinuses are messing up with me sometimes. Sometimes if I sound a little, nasally, it's my sinuses, man. I have a deviated septum, so sometimes I just get a little clogged up. If the Rockets play well right now with the newly acquired Austin Rivers, like if they just seem like they're playing even better without Chris Paul. I'm not saying Austin Rivers is a better player than Chris Paul. I'm not saying that at all. But if they play well for a long stretch without Chris Paul, I think that the writing will be on the wall. The organization could be like, you know what, look, man, we got an aging point guard. We're paying him all this money. We didn't really want to pay him all this money in the first goddamn place. We're gonna try to unload him. He's just gonna get older, and I think Chris Paul is not. In my opinion, I think most people that follow basketball think that Chris Paul is not going to be a Rocket after this year. You can just kind of sense that. For the Thunder, Paul George had 28 points and 14 rebounds. Russell Westbrook had, I think, 21 points, 9 rebounds, and 9 assists. Of course, flirting with a triple-double. And for the Thunder, this was a loss. I wouldn't call it a devastating loss, but it was a little bit of a setback because when you're a team like the Thunder and you're trying to establish yourself as one of the premier teams in the Western Conference, you always want to beat a marquee opponent. And they weren't able to seal the deal in this particular game. And, I sometimes wonder now, even though Paul George is having a I don't know if I would say an MVP caliber season. In most other seasons, it would be an MVP caliber season, but he's definitely having a career year. But I wonder if Russell maybe should not defer to him at all as much as he has been. Maybe, the there are certain times when maybe Russell should be a little bit, more assertive offensively. But that's it. That's all I really got to say about the game. Um, Tell me what you guys think.